Hello everyone and welcome back to another video here on Sam's Crafty Castle, and today we are going to do a coloring video. So I pulled out, I've talked about this before, but I've been going through my box of things that I haven't used yet and pulled out this stamp set from the ton. I am like 99.9% sure that this stamp set is discontinued. Just because I've noticed they're not a company I follow a lot, but they're a company I follow a little, and I've noticed that they've kind of moved away from these sort of like line art images recently. But if I am able to find the link for it, it will be down in the description below. But it's these really pretty sunflowers, and when I filmed this, it was still like mid-August. I'm recording this voiceover in September, and I was just like starting to get into like fall mode. And yeah, so I wanted to color some sunflowers, and I'm going to do something a little bit different. I really wanted to use my colored pencils to do this. I really enjoy coloring with my colored pencils, but the thing is that colored pencils take a long time because there's usually a lot of layers to get them to blend nicely, and the thing I like about colored pencils is how detailed you can get. To me, it's a little bit easier to get super detailed with pencils than it is with markers, although I'm practicing. But this speeds it up. It takes a long time. Like, that's the downside of colored pencils, is it takes a while. And this is one way that you can kind of speed it up or make it easier for you if you're just learning how to use colored pencils, because sometimes not getting I don't know about other people, but for me, sometimes not getting the results instantaneously can kind of make it a little bit more frustrating because you're feeling like it's not working even though it is doing what it's supposed to do. So this is just something I've learned along the way, and it's not something that I use often enough, if I'm being entirely honest. But I thought I would share it because I didn't have a lot of time when I was making this card, and you'll see that because this card is really simple. I let the coloring do all the work, and yeah, so I didn't have a ton of time, and so I tried to speed up the colored pencil process. That's basically where that's going. So what I'm doing is I picked out a few Copic markers, and I'm just essentially coloring a base layer on my paper of my Copic markers. So what that does is, because colored pencils color best in layers and doing it over and over and over again until it blends really nicely, starting with the marker just kind of lets you skip a few of those steps, or a few of those layers. So I'm just going through, and I did green for the stems. I just have a yellow that I'm doing for the leaves, and then I have a brown that I'll use for the center. And I'm just coloring it in. It's a super flat color. I'm not worrying about highlights or shadows or anything like that. And I'm one who doesn't usually get super into necessarily like light source and where's the light coming from and where's, what kind of light is it. We're just looking for color variations as far as I'm concerned. And that's enough. That adds enough detail if you just add in a few shadows somewhere, especially on a card. And now, like I do, you guys know that I have done the Kit and Clowder coloring classes, and those I tend to get a little more specific on. I'll think a little bit more maybe about like how I'm lighting things, or well, not so much how, but more like where I'm lighting things and stuff like that. I do a lot of that more with those, but I don't usually, it's not something that I typically carry over into my card making as far as that goes, and I'm a little more intentional about where my highlights and shadows and things go when I do those classes. But like for my card making, as long as there's some spots that are darker than others, it usually looks fine. So like if you find that kind of intimidating and that's something that's preventing you from getting into coloring, don't let it be. It's all good. So in this case, I just used sort of what I was going for as my mid-tone color. Don't use your darkest color, whatever you think that's going to be. Your pencils will color over the marker with the darkest color. If you go too dark, then you kind of end up in that same situation where you need a lot of layers to be able to make it work. And depending on your cardstock and a lot of different factors, you might not be able to get those layers to blend nicely. Even looking back on this video and like knowing how it comes out in the end, I kind of wish I would have gone with my lighter, like a lighter yellow first, rather than something that was almost exactly the color I wanted to be my mid-tone, or like the largest color in my flowers. It still comes out great. I still actually really like how these sunflowers come out, but I just, thoughts as I experiment with things. I've only done this technique is called underpainting, and I've only done this a few times. It's not something I always think of to reach for, but I decided to give it a go this time. One, again, because I was short on time, and two, because it's not something I do often, and I was really having trouble deciding if I wanted markers or pencils for this. So, the best of both worlds on this one. Plus, the pencil work over the marker makes the centers look really cool, I think. It picks up better on the video than I thought it would, but it just makes it look really textured, which I really like. But we'll talk about that more later. The other thing you can do with your markers is you can sort of, I think there's a better word for this, but I'm just blanking right now on what it is. But you could, shadow map. I remembered it. You can also use your markers to shadow map, which is basically where, like, now I wouldn't have been able to do that just because I went straight for my mid-tone color. But if I would have gone with my lightest color, I could have done some what they call shadow mapping, which is basically like planning out where your shadows are going to go, where your darkest color is going to go in your piece. So I could have colored all of the leaves with like the light yellow color, or all of the petals with like a light yellow color, and then used my mid-tone to just sort of draw in where the shadows were going to go. And then when I went over that with my pencil, then that part was done. I didn't do that. I just colored them all one flat color. Part of me wishes I had done that. Part of me is fine that I didn't. So, yeah, do with that what you will. The other thing I want to talk about, which is what I'm doing right now, which is the leaves. So, this stamp is set up that the leaves stamp black. I thought about, like, trying to no-line color this bad boy, but I just wasn't really in the mood to try that hard, if I'm being honest, because no-line coloring is still a little tricky for me at times. And I actually really like the look of having like the solid lines more than the no line stuff. No line stuff is really pretty and it looks really cool, but it's just not my preference to color, and I like when other people do it. I don't like it when I do it, I guess. So I actually do like the look of having the line arts in there, but these leaves on this one stamp black, which was really at first kind of like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do about that, because I don't want the leaves to be black. I wanted them to be green, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, I can probably tint them green. So pencils sit on top of things more than, where markers, ink tends to like soak into a paper. Pencil sits a little more on the top, which means that sometimes, and it's a little more opaque, so like, and markers tend to be a little more translucent. And basically, you can, if you make a mistake in a colored pencil situation, sometimes, not always, but sometimes you can just color over it and the mistake goes away. So I was like, well, I can probably tint the leaves green. And this worked so much better than I expected. Like, I thought for sure it was going to be like not show up at all. But I was able to take my marker. I took my green marker, the same one I did on the stems, and I put that over the leaves. So that kind of gave me already a sort of green-black layer. And then once I colored over it with the pencil, the green really came out. And I was like, okay, cool. That worked way better than I expected. They're still kind of dark. It's still hard to see that it's green, but like even the green picked up better on the camera than I expected. Like, you can, it's a very, very dark green, but you can kind of tell it's green rather than black. And that's good enough. That was basically what I wanted. So, and it doesn't look like it's working when you're doing it, or at least it didn't look like it was working when I did it. But then once I finished everything, I was like, yes, okay, that did work. So, just a little tip there. If you have something that stamps solid and you don't want it to be the color that the rest of your line art is, get out your colored pencils. You can adjust it. Black is obviously hard to do that with. Like if you stamped it with like a white pigment ink or even a light gray, like I'm thinking like Gina K Soft Stone or something, like you might be able to color over it and not even notice that it's a different color underneath. But with black, black is black and it's hard to do, but or to cover up, I guess. But it worked, and I'm happy about it. So now I'm just going through and doing all of the petals. I just take my darkest color, which was kind of an orange color in this case, and go over all of the spots that I want to put the shadows in. Grab my mid-tone color, blend those shadows out, and then blend further out with my lightest color. And that's why I said I kind of wish I would have picked a lighter yellow for my underpainting layer. I did not pick out pencil colors before either, I should say that too. When I grabbed the markers, I didn't pick out what color pencils I was going to use first, so that didn't help either. If I would have picked out what color pencils I was going to use first, I probably would have picked a lighter yellow marker, but I didn't do that. So I was just kind of working with what I have. Also, I have so many pencils. I have to like do a pencil order soon because I have a lot of pencils that are starting to get too small to use. So I have to order some because I was very limited on, not very limited, I still have a lot of colors, but the colors that I wanted to use are ones I use a lot. And I was like, oh, okay, so they're kind of, and I was spent like 20 minutes digging around for them because I have a couple different like places that I keep extra pencils. Like I have one place where I keep one of each of the 150 Prismacolor pencils that there are, and then I have a couple of places that I keep extra ones, and I had to dig through all my extra ones to find the colors that I wanted, and I think some of them just wandered off, if I'm being honest, but that's just like pens, colored pencils tend to wander off too, unless that's just my craft room, which is quite possible. So anyway, so I'm just going to do that on all the leaves. And I don't show you every flower of this, just because it would have taken so long. And it's the same process on every flower. So, or every petal, every petal and every flower. It's the same process. I don't really mix it up at all. So, and now I'm just doing it again. I don't know if you caught that I made it all the way around. And then, like I said, colored pencils work in layers. So I'm doing all of my petals one more time. Just to get them really nice and blended out. So with doing, papers have limits on how much color they'll accept. And you kind of just got to work with whatever paper you have to decide to, essentially decode that. Like the paper that I use for my kit and clouder classes is really toothy, especially for the colored pencil ones, not the marker ones, because that's two different things. But for the colored pencil ones, it's really toothy, so I need a lot of layers to make it blend nicely. This paper is really smooth because I was using markers first, so I went with my marker paper instead of my colored pencil paper, and so I needed less layers to get it to blend out. So, and plus doing the underpainting took layers away too, because that sort of like takes up space in the paper too. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's basically how it works. So now I'm doing the centers. Okay, so I want to talk about centers because I think this is really cool. So I did sort of the base layer of the brown marker, and then sunflowers have that kind of like textured inside, right? I wanted to get some of that texture in my drawing, but not, or in my coloring. But I didn't, I thought of like gluing down little gems or something to like make that texture. But what I ended up doing is taking the colored pencils and basically just scribbling all over them, which is something I learned from Kate and Clouder to do on flowers, is in the centers you can just kind of scribble and it makes them kind of textured and fun. And that's what I did. I just kind of scribbled 3 different colors in there. And it just makes it a little bit more textured and fun. Again, not exactly, this isn't drawn to, with like the little bumpy bits that are usually in a sunflower. And I didn't want to draw them in myself because I was too lazy for that, honestly. So that was just sort of my workaround, doing the little scribbles. But I actually really like the way it looks, and it just adds a little texture to it. And then I just stamped the bow on, and now I have to try it. See, now we're in the card. Coloring is over. Now we're just going to do the card. And like I said, it's going to be really simple. I'm pretty much going to stamp a greeting on this, and then we're going to stick it down. So I stamped the little bow just because the bow was cute. I kind of wish I would have made an actual bow to stick on there rather than use the stamp. I think it would have looked a little bit nice, but it's okay. The stamp looks good too. And then I took some time to find the right greeting. I wouldn't really want to pull out another set to grab another greeting, so I was trying to find one that looked really good, kind of hanging off the edge of the paper because I didn't have a ton of space for a greeting. And now we're just going to stick everything down, but not really, because I'm going to change my mind in a second here and decide that I need to add the little Gina K black panel to the edge. I was just going to originally glue that down right to the card base, but then was like, no, the little extra bit of black around the edge will really make it pop. And since it's already such a simple card, it was just going to add a little something extra to it. And that's why we like dot runners, because we can peel things up and redo them 10,000 times. I was having issues getting it on straight. And then we're going to glue it down to the card base once I finally get it on straight, and then we'll be done. And that's it. So that's it for today's video. And thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And I'll see you again soon. And have a crafty day.